and we just need to live stream.
All right.
All right, we're ready to go.
All right, great. I am going to call this meeting to order at 4:04 for the Ad hoc Rules Advisory Committee meeting for Thursday, January 30th. We'll start with a moment of silence and then get rolling. Okay, thank you. Next up is approval of minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review? All right, it has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded to approve the minutes of January 25th, 2024. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, next up is one of my favorite topics, discussion and recommendation regarding start time of city council meetings. I can give a little color background to this and then we can open it up for discussion. One of the things that we had kind of talked about, or at least kicked it around the idea, was oftentimes Ways and Means finishes fairly early compared to the 5 o'clock start time for council. We already do, if Ways and Means runs over, we start council after 5 o'clock. So the proposal that we wanted to discuss was noticing the city council meetings that instead of starting at 5, they would start immediately after Ways and Means. And then that would give us the chance that we could roll right into it, but also would give the public kind of the knowledge that if we're still in Ways and Means after 5, city council would begin immediately following. Because I just think it gives it's a little confusing when we're still in Ways and Means sometimes at 5:30 if we have issues with the budget or stuff like that. So I will open up the floor for discussion if anyone wants to kind of provide some ideas. I know Ross, you had said that some other government entities do it that way. I was wondering if you could shed a little light on that as well if you wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carl, I appreciate you bringing this forward. This is definitely done in other jurisdictions around the state. And I think, from a FOIA perspective, as long as we're providing notice appropriately that these meetings will be consecutive, there's no issue with not having a defined start time. And so this would potentially save us, sometimes, we start at 4:30 and, we've got a Ways and Means meeting that lasts 5 minutes, and then we're just sort of hanging around for half an hour or so. This would allow us to kind of collapse that time and get out of City Hall even earlier than we've been getting out in recent months. So I totally see the logic behind it. It certainly doesn't require us to do it, but it gives us that flexibility. So I think it's worth talking about.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah. It probably works very well for us, but my question is, does it work well for the citizens? Most people have a 9 to 5, at least. And, if I want to at least get a part of city council meeting in person, that gives me the opportunity to be able to get there after work if necessary. Just throwing this out for consideration. Because I really think the timing had more to do with giving the public a better opportunity to be able to participate or be there.
Yep, no, that makes sense. Yes, Councilmember Waring.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna say something very similar to what Councilman Gregory just said. I know some cities, as a matter of fact, I think Columbia used to have their city council meetings in the morning, which really doesn't give the public a chance to come and attend. And I know sometimes, people come and citizen participation, and sometimes we have to bide our time and get through it. But by the same token, there are people that come sometimes and say some very salient points that we follow up on. And I actually think, because he's on the call, the mayor's here, he's found a way to use that time productively. There are times we, go in his office and get a question or two answered prior to city council meeting beginning. And believe it or not, I found that to be valuable. I hope he has. I hope you all have. There are
Did
times he's come
Yep.
and informed us on a couple of things, but for that time that was unexpected, all 12 of us wouldn't have been together to even get a sidebar. So, you know, I guess, listen, we got people on this call that used to be there 10:30 at night. So,
No.
so have an extra 20 minutes or so before a meeting begins. It also gives us time as council to sometimes get a question or two answered by the executive staff and other people who attend the meeting on a regular basis. So I don't think it's wasted time. I've been bored too now because it seems like that clock moves slow in between ways and means in the beginning of 5 o'clock at the beginning of the meeting. But I think for the most part, it has been made productive. So I like to hear the mayor say something on that. I mean, I think he certainly turned it into, I thought, productive time sometimes when we have that little down period. So
Yep, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Look, I'm kind of either way on this one, guys. I mean, it's all the same to me. I got my office right over here, so if I have found it productive, no question. Though at times it's been a slow clock, as Councilman Waring points out, but certainly respect and understand where Councilman Gregory's coming from as well. I think we can keep seeing how it goes and maybe revisit this if we find that it's not productive when we continue this faster pace with Ways and Means, which I hope we do. And so that would be my suggestion. One other idea would be you could start Ways and Means a little bit later, 15 minutes later, and that would probably help on both fronts, right? Not have time in between and keep people at the constituents that are coming in on their same clock, if you will. So that's kind of where I am. This is really a decision I would defer to the council on. I'm fine either way, but I do think it's been productive by and large to have a little bit of time in between just to hash things out and clarify things and the like.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilman Gregory.
I think it's pretty hard for people who have a full-time job to come to chamber for a meeting that starts at 2:00. I mean, let's talk for a minute, guys, okay? Yeah. Has it come to a meeting that starts at 2:00? And that meeting may be over 2:30 sometimes, okay? Or maybe 3, all right? So you've got all this downtime between that standing committee meeting and Ways and Means. So if we're gonna look at this, can we look at this in its totality? Bombarding council members with 3 and 4 meetings, okay, just before Ways and Means. To me, now I'm not working, not a 9 to 5, but to me, we need to look at all our meetings and how they're scheduled to see how we can maximize on saving precious time.
And we've looked at that for sure. We've tried to stack them on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I believe, and let the clerk. And sometimes when you have committees that meet once a month versus they're different schedules, so we're trying to keep consistent times. So that's part of it, but certainly open to more efficiencies there. But I will say that I do believe Jennifer and her staff, and the clerk and her staff, have tried to be thoughtful on that, and but happy to look at any other suggestions on how we might be able to tweak that. Because you make a good point. Some weeks you do have a pretty big gap, and we certainly want to be respectful for everybody, but especially those that do have a 9 to 5.
Yeah, and I know we had moved traffic and transportation from 3 to 3:30 for that exact reason, that
Right.
our
Right.
meetings are running like 45 minutes, and then we were sitting there for another 45 minutes until Ways and Means started.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, so
Mr. Chairman, it's a historic event when you guys show up, man.
So I'm getting the consensus, and especially from what the mayor had said, maybe we take a look at this later on down the road. But I think to your point, Councilmember Gregory, it does warrant some discussion on maximization, just to make sure that we're all using our time effectively. And because it's one of those, when a meeting starts at 2:00, you usually have the advocacy groups that are the only ones really coming. Like a lot of the regular folks aren't able to make it. So I think that's definitely something we can look at in the future going forward. So there's no further discussion. Oh, go ahead, Councilman Wade.
Just one last thing on the same subject. I mean, it's a little bit selfish, but Monday, we have real estate and public works, and this has worked out fine. But I'm on recreation, so this particular Monday they had real estate 3:00, recreation 4:00, and public works at 5. Fortunately, the recreation was canceled. But sometimes you have a real estate meeting that lasts, Ross, what, 15 minutes? And then sometimes we have a real estate meeting that'll last an hour and 15 minutes.
Mhm.
And the same goes for public works.
Works.
So squeezing in another committee meeting,
Mhm.
with those two being the same, because business license isn't gonna last as long as obviously public works, so real estate. So just a little consciousness on that one. That's all. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. Thank you, Councilman Waring. So if there's no further discussion, as I said, I feel the consensus is we can revisit this if it becomes a problem in the future, but we'll stick with the status quo for right now. And then, like I think you said, Councilman Gregory, we can work on the meeting efficiency. So
Right.
with that, I would like to move to item 4, which is also one of my favorite topics, which is fixing the November meeting so that we are not meeting the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Brady amendment. Brady amendment. I move for approval.
Yeah, second.
All right, it has been moved and properly seconded to recommend the ordinance change to move the November meetings to the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of the month, or it could be 2nd and 4th, depending on how Thanksgiving tends to fall. But the idea being to miss Thanksgiving. Is there any discussion on the proposed ordinance?
That's a great idea.
Good effort.
Yeah.
All right. With that being concluded, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. We will recommend that to council. All right, item 5, moving right along. An ordinance to amend the code of the city of Charleston, boards and commissions for terms of office. You had this in the packet. It is to allow for, if a council member seat isn't filled, for a citizen to fill that seat. And I will open it up for discussion.
Move for approval.
I'll
Is there
second.
a second? All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion?
There may be a little slight wordsmithing on it. I haven't been able to catch up with Julie on it, but the concept where I think we're all in agreement on, but it might be and or we want to make sure it's clear in terms of boards and commissions. And again, but I think the general concept is there.
And I think to be clear as well, it doesn't preclude the council member from appointing themselves if they truly want to serve.
Absolutely. Please.
On that.
Please.
But I know, having done a couple of these myself and some of the other members of council, it really, the purpose of the advisory commissions and the boards and commissions is to provide recommendations to council so that we, serving as the strategic body, can review those, but we don't necessarily have to be the ones sitting in those meetings, coming up with things. All right. If there's no further discussion on that, I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. We will report that out. I will turn section 6 over to Julia to give kind of the rundown on those items.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. And Mayor, do you want to chime in before I get started, or do you want to let's kind of take it and go? Okay.
The only thing I'll say is just, this is something that's a little bit of a work in progress. I think I want to give a lot of compliments to Julia and her staff for kind of digging into this. A big part of it has to do with, of course, the reorg that we've been doing here. But a lot of it too is, the more we've got into it, and I'll let Julia get into this, is just general cleanup. I mean, things that have been operating a certain way for years, and just they were able to catch a few things quite a number of things. It's housekeeping. It's really right. Nothing major. I think it's just a cleanup, though. But so with that, I'll turn it over to you, Julia. You've done all the lifting.
Thank you. And the mayor. Sorry, go ahead.
Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, can we take them all together? What I mean by that is I went through them all myself, and there are some questions. I tend to like a side by side, okay, which makes it easier. There are a number of changes in stormwater management, and some shifts to, and in public service, and a couple of other areas. And the rest of it I agree with. It's just sort of housekeeping and cleaning up. But for me, it would be great if I can see a comparison. This function was here. This function is now here.
Oh, I get you.
That's all I
got you. Yeah, I think. Well, we can certainly circulate the, and I asked for the for the org chart to be able to be put up digitally. Can we pull that up?
Philip, if you could screen share that.
And is that, and just so I'm clear, Councilman Gregory, are you looking at the org chart now versus what it was? And then what?
I haven't looked this one. Okay. Well, this is mayor, council, city. Okay. To be perfectly honest, it's your reorg. And, I just want to make sure that, council is not, I don't know the word to use, but carrying out their responsibilities accordingly. That's all this is about. I mean, you, the mayor, you came in, bring a fresh look, you've decided you want to do X, Y. That's fine. Okay. I just want to make sure that we're not usurping our responsibilities to you and to the people. That's all. That's all it's been about for me. And when I read the rules, it's very clear, and I'm not even going to argue the point. I agree that city is the top, but even in the rules, it says the responsibility of the mayor is to council. Yep. If we want to keep it on the same line, that's fine too, if you're following me. But just based upon even what we were provided with by Julia in terms of the power of the mayor and council, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that's all there and it's been there for years. They're just, to me, again, some cleanups. I'm not sure what a department is, okay, in terms of how you define it. I understand chiefs. Okay, I understand that part, section chiefs. But where I come from, the section chiefs were under departments, the other way around. But again, this is your reorg. If it works for you, I just want to make sure that one, council may also make recommendations for reorg, et cetera, et cetera. I think we have that authority, right, Julia? The way I read it.
Council may create departments. Yes, I believe that's
Yes.
the phrasing.
Okay. Right. And that's there. But I don't want to manage this. Let's make
Sure. You sure?
Okay. Let's be clear. My issues, just had more to do with making sure as a council, as a body, is not either giving away powers or ignoring responsibilities. Okay?
I think,
Yep.
and I think, and I completely respect that. And let me be on record by saying I have zero interest in trying to take more power. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate all of council's interest in this. And I'm sincere when I say that, and I welcome ideas and thoughts on how to make the city run better. And because that's what this effort is all about. I think we have really great people. After a year in this, I've found that we've got really good people in the city. I think we just have some dated systems and structures, and we need some cleanup on processes and procedures. And I know that sounds like HR talk, and it kind of is, but just we're a big organization, a complex one, and trying to really tweak things, not to blow stuff up, but do things that help people do their jobs better. And several of you all have been on council for quite some time. All of you all, I think, on this call have been here longer than me. So I just, again, will be on record to say I welcome any thoughts and suggestions. We're all in this together. I believe that very strongly. I believe council has full authority on all policy, on all financial matters. We can't do anything without, you all voting. But once these policies and budgets are done, it's up to the executive office to implement them. And so this is how we'd like to structure it now. And it probably will need to be, I'm sure it will need to be tweaked again. But just know that our heart is in the right place, trying to make the city function better, best that it can. So I appreciate everybody's patience and consideration on this, and glad to discuss any of these further changes in more detail.
So if I may, Mr. Mayor, I think what Councilmember Gregory was asking for was these changes through letter K, that if it was a shift in responsibility to show what that department was or may have originally had versus what they currently have, and just to do that for all the changes.
I think we can provide that pretty succinctly, and I'm happy to provide that in advance of the council meeting where this would be considered. And the other component of this I want to be clear on too is that the stormwater component of this, where we're looking at, for lack of a better way of describing it, keeping the trucks all together and the office folks kind of all together, putting the pump trucks, et cetera, under public works first, and then the engineering and plan review for stormwater under planning will help significantly, I think, in terms of operations and review. And if it doesn't help things, then we can move it back. But I think this is a smart approach on that. But I mention only that because that's the one thing, a component that has not yet been implemented. Because frankly, by ordinance, it couldn't be implemented until you all would approve it, because we have to change the language. I'm correct on that, Julia?
Yes, sir.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I may ask you a question, Mayor. It appears to me as though you're putting all maintenance under public service for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, because we've run into situations where you've got a public's work, and I'm not, please don't take this as me kind of critiquing one department or another, but you do have public works that have a defined set of stormwater that have a defined set of requirements, and they'll do some improvements up to a certain point, and then it stops. And then the rest of it would be, say, parks or grounds crew or something like that. And having this allows some movement within those folks that are out in the field, let's just say, and also provides opportunities for upward mobility. And so, yes, a lot of those external operations would be kind of all under one shop.
And did staff have any input in any of this? Or
We've talked to,
just maybe the chiefs, maybe? How did we?
No, we've talked to a lot of people, from the folks that are holding the shovels all the way up, certainly to the section chiefs, and
Okay.
So we've tried to get a lot of buy-in, and I keep asking, and we welcome feedback from employees. I mean, I was at the employee breakfast this morning and reiterated that point, as I do at every meeting. Like, we want to hear from folks on how they think things could be more efficient, because frankly, we've gotten some really good ideas from folks.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilmember Ware.
On this, as far as shifting around, I'm kind of like Councilman Gregory on that. I really do believe it's your purview. But that said, one of the issues with getting our ditches clean was just getting people hired. We were down. I forget how many people, but a lot. Okay, we had positions budgeted that we could not find people to onboard at that rate of pay. So shifting that responsibility to another department head, how does that help us get the manpower, all woman power for that matter, on board to actually fill the positions so we can get out there? Councilman Appel said this Friday, about a little more than a year ago, before you got elected. He said we need to come up with a SEAL team crew, take a SEAL team approach, crew to go out and clean these ditches, which, well, I tell you, I can't support that. I can support that with every bone in my body, but our problem has been hiring the people to get it to do that. So, how does that happen under the new org? I mean, how do you see that?
I actually think, and I believe very strongly, that it will help significantly, because you're putting job descriptions out for stormwater and similar job descriptions out, driving a backhoe or what have you out for parks. Okay. And they're being hired by two different groups, and they're a bit siloed right now. And so, you got a guy that can drive a backhoe. Well, he could, if we're down stormwater crews, he could be moved over to parks, or what I'm saying. So I think there's some fluidity that can be constructive, and less bifurcation of efforts. And so, we're going to have to map all that out. Again, this has not been implemented yet, but because we wanted to make sure that we didn't do something that was openly against the ordinance. And so this is the first step. But we certainly have talked about it for a while, and it will probably take 3 to 6 months to actually implement. But in answering your question, Chairman, I think the whole purpose of this is to make hiring more efficient, upward mobility more efficient, more opportunities for upward mobility within the departments, and better collaboration and communication within the departments and sections.
Let me follow up on that. I agree with all of that, but I remember there had been some ideas about, in effect, let's say, hiring an apprentice. So I start out as an apprentice on a shovel, but then if I learn how to operate a bobcat, And then, backhoe, I always say if I'm hired as an apprentice, I come in at a higher pay rate than just a guy on a shovel, as long as I have my upward mobility. My understanding that we had an issue with HR getting that particular
Mhm,
implemented. So I would
mhm.
hope that with your reorg would take that into account, because I think that was affecting being able to get people hired in those slots, because it was a dead end position. I'm on
Yeah,
the shovel, and 10 years from now, I'm on the shovel.
to your point, we really need to overhaul HR. I'm very excited about the opportunities there for exactly what you're talking about, for performance-based pay, for job training and professional advancement. I mean, there's all kinds of different innovative ideas that I think Councilman Brady mentioned. I think Councilman Mitchell too, from the League of Cities conference, about just how long it takes to respond to a job, and versus people that are looking. If you can't respond to a job posting on your phone in 30 seconds, you're losing those people. And so there's just a lot of things like that we're, again, great people. Some systems need to be updated. Workday has been a huge lift in the right direction, but there's a lot more work, frankly, to be done on that front. And again, I want to stress to you all what we are proposing here, and what is being talked about in this language. It will need further tweaking. And the way I envision this, just so y'all are aware, is to implement these stormwater, et cetera, over the between now and July 1st. We're also doing the dated compensation analysis that will be done by July 1st. And all of that will give us a clear picture of where we're heading as we start talking about 2026 budget. And I'm hoping we're going to have some savings in some areas, and in some areas we're going to have to spend more money. So that's kind of high level what I'm looking at. But you all are going to be very involved in that through the budget process. I just want to be prepared for it. So that's kind of the next 4 to 6 months on our end.
Yeah,
Hey, Mayor,
one last follow-up. The piece
Yep.
about
Councilmember Gregory.
Okay.
go ahead, Councilmember Waring. I'm sorry.
Thank you. We had, again, conversation. You mentioned something just now about the breakfast. People come up with good ideas. Can we put some sort of, in the 26 budget, some sort of bonus in that budget, such that employees come up with, in particular, ideas that are accretive to the city's budget, and process that they get, monetary benefit as opposed to a great attaboy,
No, I love that idea. And the other idea that I had was, if you get one of these citizen awards for outstanding service, not only should it come with a pen and a letter from me, which I know they love, and the picture especially, but I mean, maybe it's an afternoon off in the next quarter or something, a paid afternoon off. I mean, I think people go above and beyond and do some of the things that I was reading about or hearing about this morning. I mean, that's the least we can do, and I think it'll really help with morale.
I agree. Great idea.
I think in the federal government we call them suggestion awards. And then do well. But I want to go back to let's say people who in parks can drive a bobcat, and stormwater can too, but they require two different skill sets in terms of maintaining parks, as you know, and maintaining stormwater. So, I mean, as we move forward, I in trying to pull all this stuff together, and I'm sure you're doing it, but I just want to reemphasize that we need to make sure that, the skill sets are definitely going to be there when we start making these shifts.
No question. And
Otherwise we're going to be starting backwards.
Yeah, and that was, it's kind of a ham-fisted example, frankly, to your point. I mean, I think no question that you need to have skill sets, particularly on stormwater. But I guess my point is simply that if you already know how to drive a Bobcat, you can easily be trained up, I think. And we're going to have people that we have a lot of people, particularly on the hourly, that want to have upward mobility. And so this just gives, I think, a little bit more opportunity on that front by knowing opportunities just from water cooler talk, right? I mean, if you're kind of all there together versus in completely separate silos, which is the way it's been.
Who's the chairman of Human Resource? Who's the Human Resource chairman?
Councilman Parker.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, that was a very substantive discussion. I will turn it back over to Julia if there's anything else she wants to go through on these.
I'm ready to move on.
I'll be quick, I promise, Councilman Gregory. I just want to point out a few quick things just on, so I mean, you've seen the memo that was attached to this detailing what these particular proposed revisions are meant to do, which is basically alter the code to reflect what's actually happening on the ground. The purpose of these revisions is not to create any new departments or new sections. It's simply to make some changes to show what's actually happening.
Updating, right.
Right. So if you have any specific questions about any particular one, it feels like the public service and the stormwater was the big ticket item for today, obviously.
I mean, for me, yeah. For me.
I think for one thing I do want to point out is that there's an addition in here that that is slightly different. And that is in section 6H, I believe, which is highlighted for you all, so you can see that these are, revision to the zoning code, proposed revision to the zoning code. So that's going to require the public hearing as well.
Yeah. Yes.
But specifically with regard to the technical review committee, we've had some situations where there's a disagreement amongst staff in the reviewing committee, and this insertion here, this proposed revision, would allow the TRC coordinator in consultation with his or her supervisor, which would likely be Tim Keene, and the mayor, to override any stalemate when it comes to a decision in TRC. So this gives us the discretion to keep things moving when we have a situation like this with a development that's pending in front of the committee.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councilmember Waring.
I'm Catholic and we know him to be kind of docile, but on this one, I'm going to be holiness and say hallelujah. I'm ready to push forward. I'm getting from different angles of people trying to get projects approved as lockdown and TRC and things like that. This is a great idea. So
I figured you'd like that one, Councilman.
Oh yeah, I'm with it.
Ditto.
Yep, I agree.
But other than that, those are the proposals we have for you at this time. There were a few questions I had at the bottom about emergency management, resilience. Do we want to codify these, or do we want to keep them just as a floating division, which is fine as well. But those were just questions that I put to the committee, if there was any strong feeling about that.
If they're floating, who are they reporting to chief of staff?
Emergency management is reporting to fire.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Well, if I may, I'll move for approval with the condition that we'll provide per Councilmember Gregory's request in advance of council meeting, a side-by-side comparison in the org chart. But that the condition for move for approval.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and properly seconded to take items 6A through K as recommended, and with the caveat of providing the side-by-side comparison. Is there any further discussion?
No.
All right. Hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor of approving items 6A through K, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Is there anything else to come before the Ad hoc Rules Advisory Committee today?
I want to compliment the chairman on running a good meeting.
Absolutely.
Well, thank
Efficient.
you. I appreciate that. I try and keep things moving. Well, with that, we will report out at the council meeting for these and be able to have a discussion, hopefully, with the full council. So, with that, I'll call the meeting adjourned at 4:44, and I will see everybody soon.
Okay.
Thank
Have
you.
a good
Take
You
care.
guys.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.